He needed to let the police handle this. He'd seen enough to know Pete was hiding something terrible. The drive home took 15 minutes, but felt like hours. Mark's mind raced with possibilities, each more horrifying than the last. Pete's questions about evidence, his desperation to delay police involvement, the industrial cleaning supplies. It all pointed to someone trying to destroy evidence. Mark pulled into his driveway and noticed immediately that something was wrong. His front door stood slightly open, a gap of maybe 2 inches. He always locked it, had double-checked it that very morning before leaving for the police station. Heart hammering, Mark approached slowly. The door pushed open at his touch. Muddy footprints lead from the entrance through his living room, distinct against the beige carpet. The prints headed straight for the hallway that led to the bedrooms. "Hello," Mark called out, though the house felt empty. He followed the footprints to Sarah's room. The door was open. Inside, everything appeared normal except for one glaring absence. Sarah's missing person flyer, which had hung on the wall for 6 years, was gone. Torn fragments clung to the tape marks on the wall. Mark's legs went weak. Someone had been in his house. Someone had come specifically for Sarah's room for her poster. His phone buzzed with a text from Rodriguez. "Patrol car heading to Crossroads now. Where are you?" Mark typed with trembling fingers. "Home. Someone broke in. They took Sarah's missing poster." His phone rang immediately. Rodriguez's voice was tight with urgency. "Get out of the house now. Go to your car and lock the doors. Units are on the way." Mark backed out of Sarah's room, his eyes scanning for any movement, any sign. He wasn't alone. The violated sanctuary of his home suddenly felt like a trap, and he knew with cold certainty that Pete Garrison was connected to all of this. Mark sat in his car outside his house, waiting for the police when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. His finger hesitated over the screen before he opened the message. The photo hit him like a physical blow. Sarah's college ID card, the one she'd been so proud of freshman year. Her 18-year-old face beamed up at him, frozen in time, but it wasn't. The id that made his blood run cold. It was the black-gloved hand holding it against a concrete wall. The accompanying text read, "Come to Crossroads Bar basement, alone in 20 minutes, if you want answers about your daughter. No police, or she disappears forever." Mark's vision blurred. Sarah, after 6 years of nothing, of empty hope and crushing despair, someone was dangling proof of her existence like bait. His hands shook as he zoomed in on the photo. The ID looked real, worn at the edges from use. The concrete wall behind it could be anywhere, but he knew. He knew it was Pete Garrison holding that card. This bastard had his daughter all along. His phone rang. Detective Rodriguez. Mark stared at the screen, his thumb hovering over the answer button. If he told her about the text, she'd forbid him from going. Police would swarm the bar. And if Pete was watching somehow, if he had cameras, if he saw the police coming, she disappears forever. Mark declined the call and opened a new message to Rodriguez. He typed, "Pete Garrison has Sarah. He just sent proof. I'm going to Crossroads. Bar, basement, basement." His thumb moved to send, then stopped. What if Pete had access to his phone somehow? What if sending this message meant Sarah's death? He deleted the unsent message. Every instinct screamed that he was walking into a trap, but Sarah might be alive. After 6 years, his little girl might be waiting in that basement, and he couldn't risk her life by doing the smart thing. Mark drove back toward Crossroads Bar, his mind racing through possibilities. 20 minutes. Pete had given him 20 minutes, which meant he was watching, knew where Mark was. The break-in at his house. Pete must have done it while Mark was calling Rodriguez. He parked behind the building as instructed. The alley was darker now, the sun having set while he'd waited for police at his house. A single bulb cast weak yellow, light over a basement entrance he hadn't noticed before. Different from the service door Pete had used earlier. Mark got out of his car, legs unsteady. The alley was empty, eerily quiet. He approached the basement door, which stood slightly open. Down here, Pete's voice drifted up from below. Mark descended narrow concrete stairs, the temperature dropping with each step. At the bottom, Pete waited with a pistol pointed at Mark's chest. The friendly bar owner facade was gone, replaced by someone Mark didn't recognize. Face flushed, eyes wild, sweat staining his shirt. "You couldn't leave it alone," Pete said. 6 years of nothing, and then that damn Google car, and now you asking questions, calling cops. Where is she? Mark's voice came out raw. "Move." Pete gestured with the gun toward a doorway. The basement was nothing like Mark had imagined. Instead of a simple storage room, corridors branched off in multiple directions. They passed an industrial freezer unit, its motor humming. More doorways led to rooms Mark couldn't see into. The space seemed to extend far beyond the bar's footprint, possibly connecting to adjacent buildings. "You know they're already looking for me," Pete said as they walked. "That detective called the bar, asked about employee records. You ruined everything. 6 quiet years, and you had to ruin it." They stopped at a reinforced door with external locks, deadbolts that could only be opened from the outside. Pete fumbled with keys while keeping the gun trained on Mark. "Is she here? Is Sarah here?" Pete's smile was cold. "You want to see what your meddling caused, what's going to end because of you." The door swung open to reveal a small concrete room. Mark's legs nearly gave out at what he saw. A narrow bed with a thin mattress, women's clothing folded on a makeshift shelf, a bucket in the corner, and on the wall, scratches in the concrete. Hundreds of them grouped in sets of 7, calendar marks. Someone had been counting days in this underground prison. Sarah. Mark lunged forward, but the room was empty. Pete shoved him inside. "She was here for a long time. But you've made things complicated." Mark spun around. "Where is she? What did you do to her?" "The same thing I'm going to do to you." Pete aimed the gun at Mark's head. "You're going to disappear, just like your daughter. Only this time, there won't be any Google car to accidentally catch me. Nobody turning up in a sewer." Mark stared at the scratches on the wall, trying to count them, trying to calculate how many days of Sarah's life they represented. The neat groups of 7 blurred together, weeks becoming months, becoming years in this concrete tomb. "Please," Mark said, his voice breaking. "Just tell me if she's alive." Pete's finger moved to the trigger. A sharp knocking echoed from above. 3 authoritative raps that made Pete freeze mid-motion. His eyes darted to the wall where Mark now noticed a bank of security monitors he'd missed in his terror. "Police, Mr. Garrison, we need to speak with you." Pete's face contorted with rage and panic. The monitors showed multiple angles. 2 uniformed officers at the bar's front entrance, the main barroom interior, the alley where Mark's car sat visible, even the street view. Pete had been watching. Everything. The screens cast an eerie blue glow in the dim basement, showing the officers' body cameras were active, their patrol car prominent in the frame. Pete grabbed Mark's collar, pressing the gun to his temple. Not one sound. You make any noise, she dies. Understand? Sarah dies. Mark nodded, his heart hammering. Sarah, Pete had just confirmed she was alive. I'll be right there. Pete called up the stairs, his voice shifting to something artificially calm, the transformation chilling. He shoved Mark deeper into the room and pointed at the floor. Sit, don't move. If I hear anything, I'll kill her before they can stop me. Pete's footsteps thundered up the stairs. Mark strained to hear the conversation above, pressing his ear to the concrete ceiling. The distant sound of a door opening, then Pete's voice, muffled but audible. Officers, sorry, we're closed. I was just down in the basement doing inventory. Mr. Garrison, we're looking for Mark Thompson. His car was seen in this area. Thompson, the father of that missing girl. Haven't seen him since earlier today. He left around 4 o'clock. Seemed upset about something. Mark looked frantically around the room. He had to make noise. Had to alert them. A metal shelving unit stood against one wall, loaded with boxes. Mark crawled to it and shoved with all his strength. The shelf toppled with a crash that seemed deafening to Mark, but barely echoed in the thick-walled space. The concrete absorbed sound like a tomb. He grabbed a metal box and banged it against the floor, against the walls, screaming, "Help! I'm down here, nothing." The basement was too deep, the walls too thick. Pete's voice continued above, smooth and practiced. "You're welcome to look around if you want, but like I said, he's not here. Is he in some kind of trouble?" "No, sir. Just want to make sure he's safe." "You said he seemed upset." "Yeah, asking about old employee records. Something about that poor girl they found. Made tragic situation. He seemed really shaken up about it. Kept asking strange questions. To be honest, officers, I was a bit worried about his mental state." Mark pounded on the door until his fists bled, leaving smears on the metal. He screamed until his throat was raw. The conversation upstairs continued for several agonizing minutes. He could hear footsteps moving around. The officers were walking through the bar, checking. His hope soared, then crashed as he heard the worst sound imaginable, the front door closing. Pete's footsteps on the stairs were slow, deliberate. Each footfall echoed